What is up, my friends? Welcome to John Smoltz Day here on Flippin, where every single week the Hall of Famer from the Atlanta Braves joins us to talk everything happening around the game of baseball. And this week in particular could not be crazier. There's a couple days left, about one series left in the regular season of Major League Baseball before playoffs get here. And we do not know all the teams that are going to be making the playoffs. It's chaos. I'm pumped to have Smoltz on to talk about it. This week, we are going to talk about the AL Central because it was, I don't know, 2 weeks ago when John Smoltz picked the Detroit Tigers as the team to win the American League. They've now completely blown the AL Central. They are not winning the division any longer as we currently speak. And they're in the third and final wild card spot with a chance to not even make the playoffs altogether. It has been the biggest division collapse in the history of baseball if they do not win it. And I'm going to ask him what happened and if he still likes them if they get into the playoffs. AL MVP conversation. Cal Raleigh, Aaron Judge has become more and more and more of a conversation as we speak. I think it's neck and neck. You know my opinion. I said earlier in the week, I believe it's Cal Raleigh. I believe because he's a catcher and what he's doing is historic. And I think anytime a player has done something that's never been done before, it deserves a lot more credit. Cal Raleigh's in that conversation and is doing that. I'm going to ask John Smoltz if he had to pick who his answer would be. He likes to say, I don't know. I don't envy anybody that has to pick, but he's going to have to pick this week and we'll see what he says. And then ABS. The ABS system is officially coming to Major League Baseball, automated ball strike system. Got to ask him about that and see his thoughts. He obviously pitched in the game a while ago. He's a Hall of Famer, and now this is completely changing. I like it. We're going to see what he has to say about the automated ball strike challenge system. A lot of fun conversations to have with John Smoltz this week. But before we get there, on Tuesday night, Shohei Ohtani reached his 100th start in Major League Baseball. 100 starts on the mound. And I often have the conversation and I often tweet, this is the greatest player we've ever seen. But I think people can lose sight of how good he is as a pitcher. And he just reached 100 starts on the mound. And let me tell you the territory that he has entered in 100 starts. The only players in Major League Baseball history with 100 and plus pitching starts and 55 plus homers hit in a career. That is Shohei Ohtani and Babe Ruth. Just the two of those guys. In the history of baseball, Shohei Ohtani and Babe Ruth. And then when it comes to just pitching, lowest opponent batting average allowed in first 100 starts in Major League Baseball since 1900. Listen to these names. First, Herb Score. Second, Nolan Ryan. Third, Freddie Peralta. Fourth, Ed Rulbach. And fifth, Shohei Ohtani. Top five in the history of baseball and lowest opponent batting average through the first 100 starts. He's one of the best starting pitchers, one of the most dominant starting pitchers is what I'll say that you'll see in the game of baseball. His career ERA through his first 100 starts is 3.00 on the nose. He struck out 670 batters in 528 and 2/3 innings, and he has a whip just over 1. Now, I'm not saying he's the best starting pitcher in the game of baseball today, but I do believe he's a top starting pitcher, and I think it's easy to get lost in because he's one of the best hitters in baseball as well and created a 50-50 club, and we know what he does offensively. But I don't think people give him the credit that he deserves on the pitching mound, and it's historic. He's in the same category as Babe Ruth when it comes to pitching and hitting, and he's in the same category as Nolan Ryan when it comes to dominance on the mound. And that, my friends, is why I often say this is the greatest baseball player we've ever seen. Through his first 100 starts on the mound, elite territory. And that just happened on Tuesday, his 100th start. Without further ado, it is time, my friends. We record this on Wednesdays. It comes out on Thursdays. And we have about one series left this weekend in the Major League Baseball season. So I'm excited to welcome in now to talk through it all, the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. All right, and I am pumped to welcome in now, as we do every single week, the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. And John, we have made it to the last week of the regular season in Major League Baseball, and I think even from when we talked maybe last week, for sure 2 weeks ago, we have gotten a lot more chaos than I think we thought we would get.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I used to beg for chaos just because I want to see how it would work out. And the reality is, we've got a scenario that could be very chaotic. I mean, I don't think we ever anticipated some of these teams being in the position, especially the Detroit Tigers and the Cleveland Guardians. But
Yep.
everything else, as far as the playoffs and the National League, is a little bit exciting there. Got some teams that we did that punted. They went in another direction, and all of a sudden they're still in the mix. So baseball is relevant and fun when the last weekend matters. And with the playoff structure the way it is, typically something's going to matter when the last weekend comes into play.
Absolutely. I want to start, John, with that the American League Central. It was, I believe, 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, you and I were talking about the top team in the American League. And at the time, you picked the Detroit Tigers to win the American League. They had the biggest division lead. If they don't win the division, it'll be the biggest division lead blown in history. Now they're currently not in first place in the division, and they're in the third and final wild card spot. What has happened with the Detroit Tigers?
Well, the biggest thing is, you would think if they just played normal baseball, it wouldn't even be close, right?
Yeah,
Still, even with the run the Guardians have been on. But last year's miracle and this year, you could almost say the irony of the opposite,
yeah,
it's kind of evened out. I mean, last year, I don't think anybody in the world thought there was a chance that this
yeah,
team could run the table, and they did. And I think the same thing could be said for the Cleveland Guardians. Even them, if they had to be honest, did not see a hope and a pathway to this point 3 weeks ago. I did their game. I talked with their manager. He has an incredible attitude and outlook towards some of the things they didn't do during the trade deadline. He said that clubhouse was fine. They believe in themselves. They have to play a different brand of baseball to win. To go 16-2, I think, is what they've done in the last 18 games. That's insane. And to be in position to lock down a division that never, I mean, this is the major thing about the last 2 years. To have the Tigers do what they did last year and have them do what they did this year, you could say is more in the middle of what probably is more likely their
yeah.
team. But I just think the thing that went wrong is offensively, they got cold at the wrong time, I guess. Their mix and match and their decisions and all the things that were working probably aren't the timing isn't great right now.
If the Tigers still get in, do you still like this team if they get into the playoffs, or for what you've seen over the last couple of weeks, you're not nearly as high on them?
I think, like we've seen before, if in a 10 to 20 day period, you can flip the switch somehow and turn back into that opportunistic offense,
Yeah,
right guys getting hot, then yes, the pitching seems to be fatiguing, no doubt, but that fatigue is a byproduct of not scoring any runs too,
yeah.
and not putting up the runs that allows pitching and dominant pitching to be a lot more freedom,
Yeah.
and I think that's the difference right now for the Tigers.
John, in the American League, the MVP race has seemingly a couple times this year gotten close and then maybe in the hands of Aaron Judge. And seemingly again right now, it's a really close race. Cal Raleigh has reached 58 home runs as we speak, broken multiple single season records, including most home runs in a single season by a switch hitter, breaking Mickey Mantle's record in 1961. Aaron Judge still hitting well over 300, 49 home runs as we speak. There's a very real chance we could get 60 from Cal Raleigh and 50 or more from Aaron Judge. If John Smoltz had a vote, and as we speak right now, who's your American League MVP, Cal Raleigh or Aaron Judge?
Man, I was just about to say I don't envy anybody who's got to make this vote, right? Because we talked about it. It's an interesting twist to not just normal apples and apples. If this
Yep.
statistics, if you took the statistics of Raleigh and you just put him in left field and he was a left fielder, I think Aaron Judge is going to win the MVP, right?
100%.
I don't think there's any discussion there. But because he's a catcher and because the Seattle Mariners have virtually rode his back and he has had so much input in a game besides his offense. That's why I think he could nose out Aaron Judge at the end of the day and win the MVP. If he gets to 60, I've been consistent. Now, if Aaron Judge gets to 54, 55, then I think it's more of a wash.
Mhm.
But 60 to me is a game changer for a position that has so much impact. And again, he hasn't caught every single game, but the majority of the games he's caught, he's been so important behind the plate. Look, this is the other thing. You can't go home. You can go home as a right fielder, you lose a game and you didn't fare well at the plate. That's one thing. But you go home and lose a game and you're behind the plate and you lost in decisions you're making with there's so many more components that you have to mentally deal with to play kind of offensively successful. So if he gets to 60, I'm not 100% there, but I'm 90%. I would vote for Cal Raleigh.
Judd, I'm with you. And look, we're in a day and age where there's a lot of statistics and advanced statistics and analytics that tell us a lot about the game of baseball, and they're fun for fans to take in. But I'll tell you, there's not a single statistic in my mind that can place the actual value that a catcher brings to a baseball game. And it starts at home getting your body ready. It starts when hitters are preparing for the game. Cal Raleigh and all the catchers are in the pitchers' meetings, preparing with pitchers, preparing to call a game. It's just so much that goes into leading a pitching staff and calling a game and getting your body ready every single day to be a catcher that I know there's fielding metrics that value a catcher, but to me, there is not a fielding metric that can truly measure what a catcher brings to a baseball team.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he's got 13 guys he's got to know the tendencies of. He's got to go to two meetings.
Yep.
He's got to go to pitchers meetings. He's got to go to hitters meetings. He's got a consumption of information that he has to process and get through. And look, this game's mental. And if you're mentally tired, it's harder to hit. It's harder to catch. Now, if you're playing a DH role, you can take apart one of those mental toughness and have more freedom to just hit. And I'm not saying right field is the cakewalk because it's not, and center field is the two positions that Judge has played. But for the most part, he's not involved in the pitching decisions and the
Yeah.
pitching meetings. He's having to make sure he handles the opposing pitcher on that given day.
I've said it a million times. I'm going to say it again, but every time that I have this discussion, I feel like I need to reiterate this is not an argument against Aaron Judge and what he's doing this year.
Correct.
It is an argument for Cal Raleigh and the historic season that he is having.
Yeah, you can make an argument. He's approached the Ohtani argument. Like it's a freakish outside the box, never see it again. And that's why you can win an MVP. And typically, Aaron Judge's numbers 100% of the time are going to win an MVP.
Yep.
100%, unless you run up against a one in a lifetime career year that is happening right now in Seattle.
Yep. Absolutely. John, last one for you this week. It has been officially announced earlier this week that the ABS system is coming to Major League Baseball in 2026. The automated ball strike challenge system. Two challenges. You keep them if you're successful. Challenges can only be initiated by pitcher, catcher, or batter. No help from the dugout or players on the field. And in extra innings, each team will be awarded one if they don't have one. John Smoltz, what are your thoughts on the automated ball strike challenge system coming to Major League Baseball next year?
I like it. I like anything that's going to advance and help correct the obvious mistakes. We're going to have mistakes in our game. I think umpires would even tell you it's a very difficult game to umpire these days, both from the speed, technology, from pitching. And I think that it is only going to help the game move in a positive way. The reason we're at this point is the technology is so good and people can see things on their TV
Yep.
that they know may or may not be accurate, but don't look right. And you just want less complaining and you want less games impacted. Now, this meeting that every team is going to have in spring training, and I've heard people say, I got a three strike policy. You're wrong three times. you'll never get a chance to use your challenge again.
Wow.
That's a great way to go about it because you know the ego and the players that think
Yeah.
they know they're going to want to quickly do something. And if they're wrong, then they're going to be stripped of that
Ooh, I
responsibility
like that.
after so many. I've heard that be from a few managers, and I
Okay.
think it's brilliant because you know you've got to have the trust of certain guys that, you tell me Arise is at the plate. I will give him whatever luxury he wants because he thinks and he knows the strike zone better than anybody. I'm not going to question him. Pitchers, as much as I think that I would know the strike zone at the mound, I'd be very careful to let pitcher ever contest a strike. I would rely on my catcher and my hitter, and that's being a former pitcher.
Man, yeah, I'm excited for it, and I totally I agree with what you're saying. I don't think we would be here unless a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we started putting that box on the screen, so everyone sitting at home thinks
Yeah,
they're an umpire, and it's easy to call it, and it has led to us getting this. I love that it's the challenge system and not the full ABS, but I do think it'll be good for the game. I'm excited to see it next year.
it's definitely going to be good for the game. There's going to be some strategy employed. You're going to have to be right a lot. And I think the game will benefit from it because I've watched a lot of games lately, and there's been some calls that really change an at bat, not define it, meaning it's not strike three,
Hmm.
but when you're 2-1 and the difference between going 3-1 and 2-2 is pretty big. I mean,
Yep.
those are the kind of things you have to make sure that they don't get carried away on an 0-0 pitch that's wrong, that you challenge it just because you're going to have some criteria behind it.
Yep. John, always appreciate it, my friend. We are a few days away from the regular season ending and it being playoff time. So thanks again, as always, and we'll do it again next week.
I look forward to it. Thanks.
All right, just wanted to thank John again for joining us here on the show. Always appreciate it. No matter what he's doing, no matter where he is, John Smoltz joins us on Flippin' Bats every single week to talk through things. And he made his pick. He's leaning Cal Raleigh for AL MVP. And as we currently speak, something could change, right? Aaron Judge could homer 5 times over the next few days and maybe put himself in position to win the MVP. He is in position to win the AL MVP. But as we speak right now, if we're splitting hairs, I think I take Cal Raleigh, and I agree with John Smoltz as well. So fun conversations to have today. I know I did not end up asking him his Smoltz formula, but we're not going to get the Cy Young Award picks as the season ends. We'll get them at the end. So I still have plenty of time to ask him about the Smoltz formula with the Cy Young Awards. But there's just a lot going on in baseball right now, and we have the final weekend series of the year coming up in the next few days. And on Monday is an off day between the last game and the wild card rounds. We will have a new episode of Flippin' Bats coming out on Monday to outline it all. My playoff bracket, who I have winning it all, what ended up happening, previewing each wild card series. Man, it's go time. 2025, my friend, the year of Flippin' Bats. Thanks again to John Smoltz. Thank you all for watching and listening, no matter where you do. Check us out on our YouTube channel, Flippin' Bats Pod. You can watch whatever you want there. Watch every single episode. Subscribe, comment on each video. That really helps. I love hopping in the comments and talking to you guys and continuing the conversation of the show there. I try and comment on every single comment on every show. So hop in there. We're on all social media as well at Flippin' Bats Pod. Enjoy the final weekend, my friend. Chaos is coming, and we'll talk about it all on Monday. Until next time, my friends, remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace.